Welcome to NTD Evening News. Our top story tonight, new details emerge in the deadly New York City subway arson case. Police have identified the woman burned to death. What Mayor Eric Adams says about the horrific incident. A massive power outage in Puerto Rico. More about the cause and the restoration work underway. South Korea's worst aviation disaster in decades claims 179 lives. U.S. investigators are now assisting in the probe into the fiery crash at Won Airport. A South Korean court has issued an arrest warrant for President Yoon, marking the first time a sitting president of the country has faced arrest. The U.S. military strikes targets in Yemen linked to the Houthi terrorist group. Meanwhile, residents in Israel continue to seek shelter from the group's missile attacks. Jason Perry reports. And it's New Year's Eve. Chris Beers spoke with revelers in Times Square for the beat of the street. We'll have that holiday cheer for you.
This is NTD Evening News. Live from our global headquarters in New York City, here's Tiffany Meyer.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight. New York City police today identified the woman who was set on fire and burned to death in a subway train car earlier this month. She is Debrina Kawam, a 57-year-old homeless woman from Toms River, New Jersey. Here's New York City Mayor Eric Adams addressing the incident.
And, our hearts goes out to the family, a horrific incident to have to live through. And, just watching that tape, just really, I couldn't even watch it all the way through. It was just a bad incident, and it impacts on how New Yorkers feel. But it really reinforced what I've been saying. People should not be living on our subway system. They should be in a place of care. And no matter where she lived, that should not have happened.
Identifying the victim proved to be a challenge. Police had to use forensics and video surveillance to trace her. It appears Kawam recently moved to New York and had a very brief interaction with the city's homeless services. Nothing else is known about her, but authorities had been in contact with her next of kin. The man who allegedly set her on fire is Sebastian Zapita, an illegal immigrant from Guatemala. Police said they don't believe Kawam and Zapita knew each other. Zapita has yet to enter a plea in the case and remains jailed. A massive power outage in Puerto Rico has left 90% of its population in the dark. Puerto Rico's governor says a critical failure in the island's power grid caused the blackout. He said the government and providers are working to restore service as quickly as possible. Luma Energy said about 14% of its customers now have power again after a total blackout that began early Tuesday morning. Luma says it will take up to 48 hours to reach full restoration. Nearly 1.4 million customers have been impacted. Turning now to that deadly plane crash in South Korea. U.S. investigators have now joined in on inside probe into the disaster. The plane crashed into a wall at Won Airport, killing 179 people. NTD's Daniel Monahan has the latest.
South Korea says one member from the FAA, 3 experts from the National Transportation Safety Board, and 4 representatives from Boeing have joined South Korean officials. The closure of Muon Airport runway has also been extended to January 7th to be reassessed later. The Boeing 737-800 plane, operated by South Korean budget airline Jeju Air, aborted its first landing attempt for reasons that remain unclear. During its second landing attempt, it received a bird strike warning from the ground control center before the pilot issued a distress signal. The plane landed without its front landing gear deployed, overshooting the runway. It slammed into a concrete fence and burst into a fireball. John Cox, CEO of Safety Operating Systems, described the evidence as really unusual and very tragic, and questioned the presence of a concrete fence near the runway.
Probably what struck me the most about it was why that concrete berm was there, because that airplane could have stopped. People could have gotten off of it if they hadn't hit that concrete berm. Why was it there?
Cox also noted that the landing gear was not deployed and the wing wasn't configured for landing.
which means it was still set up for high-speed flight. All of that resulted in the airplane approaching the runway at a much higher speed than normal. That is not something a pilot would do if they had other alternatives.
Transportation Minister Park Sang-woo said Tuesday that 174 victims of the 179 people killed in the crash have been identified.
I'm sorry, but there are 5 people who have not been identified yet. They need more precise testing for results, and I've heard it is due to various reasons.
Sunday's crash was the country's worst aviation disaster in decades. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
A South Korean court has authorized the arrest of impeached President Yoon Suk-yeol, marking the first time a sitting president of the country has faced arrest. Here are the details.
Investigators allege Yoon led an insurrection, one of the few charges for which a South Korean president does not have immunity. The arrest warrant was issued by the CIO, or South Korea's Corruption Investigation Office for high-ranking officials, and was approved by a district court in Western Seoul. Yoon's lawyer, Yoon Gap-gun, spoke to media on Tuesday, arguing the warrant against his client is invalid.
I question whether the issuance of such an illegal warrant aligns with the principles of the rule of law. It is our position that this unlawful arrest warrant request is illegal and invalid. The declaration of martial law is a power granted to the president under the Constitution. The president exercised this authority legitimately as part of their duty to protect the constitutional order of the nation.
Yoon had already ignored summons for questioning 3 times since his martial law declaration. His supporters rallied outside his residence on Tuesday as they faced off with his critics. In a statement, South Korea's Presidential Security Service said it will treat the arrest warrant according to due process. Previously, the service had blocked police attempts to raid the presidential office as part of an investigation. Meanwhile, Yoon's impeachment trial is underway at South Korea's Constitutional Court. The next hearing in that case is set for Friday.
The United States military has struck targets in Yemen belonging to the Houthi terrorist group. This comes as residents in Israel continue to seek shelter from the group's ongoing missile attacks. NTD's Jason Perry has the Middle East update.
Residents in Israel were seen running for cover on Monday night, which has become a common situation for the country. Israeli forces have been successful in intercepting many of the incoming missiles, but the alarms still sound to warn people of falling debris. And on Tuesday, the Iran-backed Houthi terrorist group in Yemen said they had launched another missile towards Israel's airport. However, Israeli forces reported intercepting a missile fired from Yemen before it crossed into Israeli territory. That was the second reported Houthi missile launched towards Israel's airport since Israeli forces struck an airport in Yemen a few days ago, which they said was used by the Houthis for military activities. Israel's ambassador to the UN said they would not wait around for the next missile to come, and he gave a warning to the Houthis on Monday.
Let me remind you what happened to Hamas, to Hezbollah, to Assad, and to all those who thought to destroy us. This is not a threat. It is a promise. You will share the same miserable fate.
And the next day, the United States military reported launching strikes on targets in Yemen belonging to the Houthis. And smoke was seen rising in Yemen's capital after the strikes on New Year's Eve. A resident in Israel shared her thoughts as the new year approaches.
I want to wish that our country will be safe so we can walk freely. My children are serving in the army and I want the hostages to return.
Meanwhile, in Syria, many residents said they'll celebrate New Year's at home.
Because the situation is not stable, thank God there is safety. The young men of the area are spreading safety in the neighborhood.
And the president of Turkey gave a message to Syria in a New Year's video, saying that Turkey will provide Syria with any support necessary to open the door for peace and prosperity for Syria. But not everyone is supportive of the new Syrian government. The Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, said it wanted to crack down on foreigners in Syria's army after Uyghurs were reportedly promoted to high-level positions in the new Syrian forces. The CCP is accused of committing an ongoing genocide against Uyghurs in the Xinjiang region of China. Jason Perry, NTD News.
It's New Year's Eve and spirits are high at Times Square, where the famed crystal-covered ball will drop at midnight to ring in 2025. This year's celebration will include musical performances by TLC, the Jonas Brothers, Rita Ora, and Sophie Ellis-Bextor. An estimated 1 million people are expected to be in attendance tonight, and law enforcement agencies are on high alert for potential protests or violence, although no specific threats have been identified. Possible rainy weather later tonight hasn't dampened people's enthusiasm. NTD's Chris Spears was there speaking with Revelers this afternoon. Watch.
So what brings you out tonight?
Just an experience. This is their Christmas gift, so
Merry Christmas.
Instead of gifts, it's more experience for us.
What are you looking forward to in the lineup tonight?
I mean, I heard so much about it, so I'm just here in person to experience it. Yeah, and I'm just super pumped about it. Can't wait.
Any musicians you're excited for?
T-Pain.
Okay.
Definitely.
Anyone else?
Kesha.
The Jonas Brothers, don't lie.
I don't want to be
I'm excited
white
too.
girl.
I'm excited to see some famous people.
Are you excited for tonight?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we have heard a lot of it.
Awesome.
So we just wanted to experience it. Let's see if they can get us in there. So.
Yeah, definitely. We are very much excited to come here and see the ball drop.
Okay, awesome. Is this your first time in New York?
Yeah.
First time in the U.S. actually. Yeah.
Welcome to the U.S.
Yeah, thank you.
Been here since 11 o'clock this morning.
Okay.
Waiting, yes. Yeah.
So you're one of the early birds.
I'm one of the early birds.
Just hanging out with friends. Actually, I just met this guy today. Carrie's a cool guy. This is my best friend Grant right here too. Yeah. So we're just hanging out and having a good time tonight. Never been to the ball drop before, so we're really excited tonight.
Word? Oh, we outside. Well, everybody that's not from New York that's coming to see the bull drop, just wait for it, because y'all going to enjoy it.
So do you have any New Year's resolutions?
No, because for some time now, every year I make a resolution and I break it by the third day. So there's really no point. Yeah, I'm just going to be more disciplined and see how it goes.
Do you have any New Year's resolutions?
To have like a good gym routine. Yeah.
Staying healthy and safe.
Okay.
Just to be successful.
Yes, to stay healthy, safe, and positive. Always.
I love it. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. Thank you.
Do you have any New Year's resolutions this year?
Just more family experience, memories. That's about it.
And nothing for you?
No, it's time for the years to be better, not me.
All right, I want to focus on myself more and get to the top.
Just to keep doing great in school, top student and all.
Okay. You're doing well?
Definitely.
Okay, good. Yeah, keep going great.
I think I'm just gonna focus on my career, my sales job, and hitting a specific number I have in mind, and bringing the others that I have with me up as well.
Any New Year's resolutions?
I want to save a little more money, I'll tell you that.
Say that again?
Save a little more money.
Okay. Travel more.
Travel, wow, that doesn't work together, does it? We'll get that figured out.
Where are you from?
South Korea.
Ah, okay.
Great.
And also, I'm speaking English very little.
That's okay.
Anyway, Happy New Year. Yeah.
Coming up, an infamous China-backed hacking group adds a key U.S. agency to its list of victims in a major cyber breach. Deanna Monahan has what we know so far. In observation of National Human Trafficking Prevention Month, President Biden recommits the U.S. to fighting the problem. His administration is also proposing protections on land in a Nevada mountain range. Jason Blair reports from D.C. And on Capitol Hill, battles over the House speakership, a possible TikTok ban, and an approaching debt ceiling. Luis Martinez gives us a preview of key issues facing the incoming Congress at the beginning of 2025 after the break. Welcome back. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Another major cyber breach hits a key U.S. agency. The Treasury Department yesterday said Chinese state-sponsored hackers access employee workstations. NTD's Daniel Monahan has more on what was stolen and how the theft was carried out.
Chinese hackers have struck again, this time targeting the Treasury Department. The department confirmed the breach in a letter to lawmakers, calling it a major incident. According to the report, hackers exploited vulnerabilities in a third-party software provider called Beyond Trust. By gaining access to a critical security key, the attackers remotely accessed certain Treasury workstations and stole unclassified documents. The breach occurred on December 8th, and the compromised service has since been taken offline. While the number of affected workstations and the type of stolen documents remain unclear, the Treasury insists there's no evidence the hackers still have access. The FBI and the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency are investigating. This breach is the latest in a series of cyber attacks by China's state-backed Salt Typhoon hacking group. The group has been tied to wide-ranging espionage campaigns, including targeting telecom giants like Verizon and AT&T. The Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency has urged those in senior government or political positions to immediately stop using regular phone calls and text messages, and to assume such traditional mobile networks are compromised. The agency is advising them to use only end-to-end encrypted communications. The hacking group has already successfully targeted now Vice President-elect J.D. Vance and now President-elect Donald Trump, as well as Vice President Kamala Harris. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
January is Human Trafficking Prevention Month. President Biden releases a proclamation highlighting his and the country's commitment to combating the issue. The Biden administration also taking steps to protect Nevada's Ruby Mountains. NTD's Jason Blair reports.
For National Human Trafficking Prevention Month, President Biden says that he's recommitting to working to end human trafficking in America and around the globe. In a December 30th proclamation, he stated, "Human trafficking targets the most vulnerable in society and exploits them, denying their human rights, freedom, and dignity. It is a stain on our collective conscience and an affront to basic human dignity." In 2022, law enforcement agencies reported an estimated 3,570 human trafficking victimizations. That's according to data from the Justice Department. Polaris, the organization that runs the National Human Trafficking Hotline, says there were about 27,000 situations reported to the hotline between January 1st, 2020 to August 31st, 2022. They estimate nearly 43,000 trafficking victims were involved in those situations. According to Polaris, human trafficking victims are primarily forced or coerced into providing commercial sex or labor. They say victims of the horrific crime involve both males and females of all ages. And the Biden administration is also taking steps to protect the Ruby Mountains in Nevada from future oil, gas, and geothermal development for 20 years. The Interior Department has submitted an application to withdraw about 264,000 acres of federal lands in the area from such leasing. It says the move is in response to petitions by tribes, conservationists, sportsmen, and the local community. In 2018, the U.S. Forest Service did a study on whether a large area in the Ruby Mountains would be good for oil and gas drilling. The Forest Service eventually rejected the idea following an outpour of opposition. The proposal is currently in a 90-day public comment period. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Jason Blair, NTD News.
Some of the most important battles facing the incoming Congress will be an encore of the challenges faced by its predecessor. Our Washington correspondent Luis Martinez walks us through what we can expect to see happening on the Hill during the first months of 2025.
Once again, conservatives in the House Republican Conference are threatening to vote against the re-election of Speaker of the House Mike Johnson on January 3rd. Even after President-elect Donald Trump endorsed Speaker Johnson, Congressman Thomas Massie took to social media to double down on his opposition by saying that for months, Democrats ignored the fact that Joe Biden was a potato Republicans are doing the same thing by keeping Speaker Mike Johnson. And Congresswoman Victoria Spartz laid out her demands to Speaker Johnson on social media, tagging the Speaker in a post saying, "We must create an emergency fiscal working group and engage professionals." Meanwhile, other Republicans like Congressman Mike Lawler from New York are standing by Speaker Mike Johnson.
And I'll be very clear, as I was during the Kevin McCarthy fight, I'm not going to bend to their will. So if they think somehow that they are going to end up in a stronger position by removing Mike Johnson, they're not.
House Democrats are preparing to be in opposition of the incoming Trump administration, and House Democrats have already made it clear that the ban on TikTok is law and not up for the president-elect to dispute.
We don't have to, in Congress, legislate around the preferences of the Chinese Communist Party. If they decide they are not going to allow ByteDance to sell, we have to do what's in the best interest of our country, and that is make sure that the CCP can't access our data and use it against us.
And the reason that this law is valid is that it is meeting a national security imperative. Xi Jinping has called influence operations the smokeless battlefield, and TikTok is his most important weapon.
Other House Democrats are ready to work alongside Republicans after a contentious 118th Congress.
So there's going to be a need for people to work together. Look, I agree with Donald Trump on some issues. I'm probably one of those, when people talk about tariffs, I don't think you want across the board tariffs, but I think tariffs are a tool in a toolbox, and we've got to work together on trade. I did with Donald Trump on NAFTA.
I think we have to look for opportunities to work together. I'm a very progressive member from the San Francisco Bay Area. I think I reflect my constituents. I've been there for 10 years, been elected office for 30. For those of us who have that kind of experience, we realize that it's a big country with different constituents in 435 districts, House districts. So we work together in good faith.
On January 14th, the U.S. will reach its debt limit, and President-elect Donald Trump has already signaled that he will ask Congress to suspend the debt limit. Congress will also have to, before March, reach a government funding deal to fund government through the remainder of the fiscal year. It'll be a new year that will have to address old problems. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Luis Eduardo Martinez, NTD News.
Coming up, the Madoff saga ends with the Ponzi scheme mastermind's victims getting a final payout 16 years after Madoff's guilty plea. 2024 was an exciting year in sports. Dave Martin takes a look back, ranking his 10 biggest stories of the year. And Shen Yoon arrives in Britain, met with a welcome from adoring fans. This year, the company tours a dozen UK cities, seeking to inspire and share a message of hope. Malcolm Hudson reports from London after the break. Welcome back. I'm Tiffany Meyer. The Bernie Madoff saga concludes with the final payout to victims in the largest Ponzi scheme in history, 16 years after Madoff's guilty plea.
The Justice Department announced on Monday that Bernie Madoff's victims are getting their final payout from the Madoff Victim Fund. Now, 94% of the losses have been given back, over $4.3 billion to over 40,000 victims in nearly 130 countries. This comes 16 years after Madoff's Ponzi scheme, the largest in the world, was exposed. A Ponzi scheme is where a fund manager lies to investors by only pretending to invest their money. In reality, the manager pays them with other investors' money, creating the false appearance of a successful fund. It's named after Italian con man Charles Ponzi, who deceived American investors in the 1920s. Madoff said his scheme started in the 90s. Investors trusted him, likely because he was already a financial giant. He and his brother pioneered electronic trading, revolutionizing finance. Eventually, Madoff became chair of the NASDAQ for 3 years. In 2008, Madoff confessed to his two sons, Mark and Andrew, about his scheme. They then turned him over, bringing it to an end. He was sentenced to 150 years in prison, dying there at age 82 from kidney disease. Victim payouts can take a long time because of the complex process of tracking down the money and determining who gets what. The 10th and final payout is over $131 million for over 23,000 victims worldwide. It's unclear why Madoff ran the scheme, as he was already financially successful through legitimate means. In 2017, he told a journalist, "I don't know why," adding, "Everybody was greedy, everybody wanted to go on, and I just went along with it."
From the Olympics to the Super Bowl to the baseball diamond, 2024 was an exciting year in sports. NTD's Dave Martin takes a look back, ranking his 10 biggest stories of the year.
You know, 2024 gave us an historic rise in women's basketball viewership, a comeback by a 58-year-old boxer, and the biggest contract in professional sports history. But as we count down the top 10 stories of 2024, we start on the gridiron as the Kansas City Chiefs won their second straight Super Bowl back in February. Now, what had previously been the highest scoring team in the league, the Chiefs instead relied on a stout defense to march through the playoffs and beat San Francisco 25-22 for a thrilling overtime win. Number 9 takes us to the hardwood courts in Boston as the Celtics beat the Dallas Mavericks in 5 games to win the NBA title. The Celtics used a two-way lineup of players who could both hit the three on one end and play tenacious D on the other end to win the title. The championship marked their 18th in franchise history, breaking a tie with the Lakers for the most all time. Number 8 takes us to the tennis courts in Spain, where all-time great Rafael Nadal said goodbye to the game. Nadal won 22 Grand Slam titles in his career, second only to Novak Djokovic's 24. A powerful left-hander, Nadal will forever be remembered as the king of clay courts, in particular winning the French Open a record 14 times, more than anyone else. Number 7 brings us to the boxing ring, as 58-year-old former heavyweight champion Mike Tyson made a return to the ring nearly 2 decades after his last sanctioned fight to fight YouTuber Jake Paul in a Netflix streamed fight. Paul won the youth versus experience matchup via unanimous decision in front of a reported record TV audience of 60 million households. Number 6 brings us to the golf links, or in this case, just outside the course. On a rainy morning in May, world number 1 Scottie Scheffler was arrested just outside the PGA Championship after attempting to drive around the scene of a fatal crash. After being booked and charged with assault of a police officer, Scheffler was released just in time to make it back to the course on time and incredibly score a 66 on the day. He would eventually place 8th in the major tournament, while his charges were ultimately dismissed just 2 weeks later. Number 5 takes us to the Paris Olympics, where this past summer, Simone Biles not only led Team USA to a gold medal performance, she also became the oldest at 27 to win the individual all-around. Her incredible performance also included a gold in the vault and a silver in the floor routine, giving her 4 medals at these games and 11 Olympic medals in her career, the second highest total of all time. For number 4, we stay in Paris, but this time we go to the hardwood courts, where Team USA used an incredible comeback to down Serbia in the semifinals, where they would eventually win gold. The Americans trailed by as many as 17 points in the game and 13 heading into the final quarter before finally turning up the pressure. Led by Steph Curry's 36 points and LeBron James' triple-double, Team USA owned the final 10 minutes and eventually took the lead with just 2.5 minutes left and won, sending them to the gold medal game, where they would beat France for their 5th straight gold medal. For number 3, we stay on the hardwood courts of basketball, but this time for the women's game, as more people tuned in to watch the women's NCAA title game than the men's. Now, this seems to be linked to the viewership Iowa's Caitlin Clark brought to the game. Her Hawkeyes win over LSU in the Elite 8 drew a then women's record 12.3 million viewers. But that was topped by her next game, and then again 2 days after that, Clark's final game. That was the national championship game against South Carolina. That record was topped again as more than 18 million viewers tuned in to watch. Number 2 takes us to the baseball diamond, or at least the owner's box above it, as all-star outfielder Juan Soto signed the biggest contract in professional sports history, $765 million over 15 years. The mammoth deal even topped Shohei Ohtani's $700 million deal signed just a year ago. And finally, for number 1, we stay in baseball, as Shohei Ohtani became the first member of the 50-50 club, hitting 54 home runs and stealing 59 bases, winning his 3rd MVP in the process. And just for good measure, he led his Dodgers to a World Series title, topping the Yankees in 5 games. Well, there you have it, folks. My top 10 biggest stories of 2024. I look forward to more big stories in 2025. Back to you at the desk.
All right, well, Dave, now you're here at the desk. You seem to have teleported right there a bit. I'm a bit surprised your Kansas City Chiefs were at number 10. You did bring up the Olympics. Kind of forgot that happened this year. You mentioned Simone Biles and the win for Team USA, but there's also the controversy around breakdancing as a new sport, and I'm surprised, Ray Gun and your favorite kangaroo boost didn't end up in there.
If there was like the biggest social media sports story, it would be Ray Gun for sure. It's almost tough to do that without poking too much fun at her. But I kept my Chiefs at 10 to try to at least seem impartial, all right? I kept the Royals out of there.
All right, well, let's go to some news today in sports, because there's actually quite a lot. Let's start in college football. Michigan's upset over Alabama this afternoon. That's the first of 4 bowl games. How did the Wolverines pull this off?
Really, it was their defense. They only managed 100 yards, 90 yards of offense, but somehow they got 4 field goals and a touchdown out of that. They won 19-13. Now, Alabama only managed 260 yards themselves, but they were -2 also in turnovers. Michigan's defense really stymied, though, Alabama at the end, especially the passing game, the final drive. Bama had 1st and 10 at the 15 with a minute left, 0 for 4 in their passing game, and that was it. Now, elsewhere this afternoon, Louisville beat Washington 35-34 in the Sun Bowl. Right now, South Carolina trails Illinois 21-17 in the Citrus Bowl. LSU leads Baylor 34-24 in the Texas Bowl. So a lot of bowl games going on today.
Now, in college basketball news, Dartmouth's team has ended their attempt to form a union, which would have been a first for the sport. What had been the school's response to all of this?
Yeah, they said they weren't employees and they were not going to bargain with them, which really forced this case into federal court. But it's being dropped to avoid a potentially damaging precedent, since the National Labor Relations Board will soon be controlled by Republicans. Right now, there's 2 openings on the board that's going to be filled by President-elect Donald Trump, after he takes office. But the Dartmouth players, they had petitioned to unionize in 2023, saying the school had so much control of their schedule and working conditions that it met the legal definition of an employee. It certainly would have been a landmark decision had they won. Students have never been treated as employees, though there are several lawsuits pending against the NCAA that will allow the schools to pay the players, though not as employees in this case.
Well, elsewhere in college basketball, last Friday, there was a near collision at the airport runway between a flight chartered by Gonzaga's team and a Delta flight. What is the latest on all of this?
Yeah, well, the FAA is now launching an investigation into the matter. Now, what happened is Gonzaga's charter jet was taxiing to their gate after arriving from Spokane, Washington. Now, air traffic controllers told them not to cross the runway since another aircraft was taking off at the same time. That would be the Delta flight. Now, this is according to a statement from the FAA. But the jet proceeded anyway until an air traffic controller told them to stop several times. The jet then stopped short of the runway edge and the Delta flight took off without incident. Now, there's been 3 other airport crashes really this month, so these have gained really a lot of attention. In any case, Gonzaga players were okay. They played UCLA then on Saturday. They lost 65-62.
Well, tonight, New Year's Eve, of course, but also the next round of the college football playoffs begins as Penn State faces Boise State in the Fiesta Bowl. What do you think is key to this game?
Well, definitely for Penn State, stopping Ashton Jeanty, Boise running back, is going to be job number 1. Jeanty led the NCAA in rushing yards, just under 2,500 this season, only 132 yards away from Barry Sanders' all-time record. He finished 2nd in the Heisman Trophy voting. He's very good. Now, no one was able to stop him this season. That includes number 1 ranked Oregon. He ran for 192 yards and 3 touchdowns against them. That was back in September. The Ducks only won that game by a last-second field goal. That was Boise State's only loss this season. Now, Penn State also played Oregon, lost by 8 points in the Big Ten title game. There's been plenty said about head coach James Franklin not being able to win the big one. This team, though, I think they have a lot more spark on offense. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game tonight, but I think Penn State comes out on top.
Well, Dave, as always, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you, Tiff.
World-class classical Chinese dance group Shen arrives in Britain, met with a welcome from adoring fans. This year, the company tours a dozen UK cities, seeking to inspire audiences and remind them that there is hope and positivity in the world. NTD is a media sponsor for Shen. More from NTD's international correspondent Malcolm Hudson in London.
Landing in Britain for a 12-city UK tour, Shen Performing Arts is set to captivate and inspire audiences across the island nation, featuring not only stories and legends from ancient China, but the virtues and values behind them, with the mission to revive genuine traditional Chinese culture and show the world China before communism. Fans eagerly awaiting the arrival of Shen. It is the world's leading classical Chinese dance company, formed in New York in 2006 and growing from 1 to 8 whole companies touring the world simultaneously. While mastering technical dance skills, principal dancer Jason Pan explained they also seek to develop virtue and goodness.
When an actor has a good inner state, he can express the inner world of the character he portrays in the purest and most intuitive way, providing the audience with a sense of pure goodness and beauty on stage.
This is one reason why audiences feel there is something different about Shen. It draws on 5,000 years of traditional Chinese culture, from antiquity to the modern day, a history brimming with heroes and tales of courage, integrity, loyalty, and compassion. MC Teresa Du introduces each mini-drama to help the audience understand.
Well, we really try to have good audience interaction. I think that it's really important to be connected with the audience and really give them the feeling that they're being brought into the story, and then when they see it, it's another level.
She said they dedicated half a year to training and honing their skills, and they hope to showcase this as well as their deeper message.
I feel like the morals that we spread are very positive and uplifting, and they bring hope to everyone. I think that nowadays in society, things happen and they're rather unfortunate. So what we want to do is just really uplift the audience and then let them know that there is hope and there is positivity in the world.
An important element to convey this is one that a lot of people don't actually notice until halfway through the show. That is, that Shen features a symphony orchestra accompanying the dance. Concertmaster Ryan Lee explains.
That's true. A lot of people don't actually notice the orchestra, but actually the orchestra plays a crucial role because in terms of how we portray the music and the emotion and the power we give through the music, it directly affects the dancers and how they can portray their emotions and how well they dance, how much energy they have.
And Shen's orchestra has a unique and distinctive characteristic.
If you don't already know, we actually combine classical Western and classical Chinese instruments within the orchestra. So it's kind of like a combination of East and West.
Every year, an all-new program with brand new choreography.
Our last stop was in Atlanta, and the audience feedback was great. I am sure that the UK audience will love it too.
The UK tour begins in Birmingham in the new year and follows through until early March. Malcolm Hudson, NTD News, London.
Over the past few months, the New York Times has written 7 articles negatively targeting Shen, whose mission is to show China before communism. The timing of the Times' articles coincides with a leaked document from the highest level of the Chinese Communist Party, which reveals a plan to eradicate the spiritual group of Falun Gong and any organizations established by its practitioners overseas. Shen, in response to the Times' articles, says the misleading reporting disregards the human suffering ongoing in China and belittles the faith of tens of millions across China, America, and around the world. To hear their story, tune into Capitol Report at 7 p.m. Eastern and hear from Jared Mattson, a Master of Ceremonies with Shen since 2007. Coming up, America is preparing to enter 2025 with well wishes and national celebrations. Sam Wong spoke with folks in D.C. to find out their plan for the day and their New Year's resolutions. See how cities across the world are welcoming the new year with dazzling fireworks and unique traditions. From Asia to the Pacific, the countdowns have already begun. Christina Corona has the highlights. And animals found their way into some unusual places this year. We have the stories that brought us joy and laughter in 2024 after the break. Welcome back. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Folks from across America are preparing to herald the start of 2025 when the clock strikes midnight. NTD's Sam Wong was out on the National Mall in D.C. to hear from people about their plans for the day and their New Year's resolutions.
How do you plan on celebrating this new year?
Well, I'm going to celebrate with my wife. We're going to the Kennedy Center for a jazz concert. We're very excited about it.
Who are you watching?
Yes, great question. My wife knows. I don't even know. I just love jazz.
We are going to see a couple bluegrass bands at Hamilton Live, Yonder Mountain String Band, and opening for them is Fireside Collective.
Going out, doing some dancing, looking real cute, having a good time.
That's what New Year's all about, right?
Yeah, really.
Where are you going? Are you going to the waterfront? Or?
It's a surprise, actually.
Celebrating my New Year's with my friend here. We go way back in Texas. I drove 22 hours just to celebrate New Year's with her. She's a really good friend. She's always been there for me and for everybody else back home.
We're going to be in the family in a restaurant, having fun, blowing some balloons and some noise, and giving thanks to God that we are making it. We haven't made it yet, but we will make it.
We're friends and family traveling across the country. My wife is a lieutenant in the United States Army, just direct commissioned. We're TDY to Fort Gregg Adams, and in the meantime, we're stopping family vacation out here so that some of the generations can see what we fight for.
What's your New Year resolution?
Be happy. When you're happy, you can do everything.
Refocus on self-development. It's been away from that for a little bit.
Get healthier? No, I don't know. Spend more time doing the important things.
Be brave, take a chance, and do your best to take care of yourself.
Making the steps to choose what I want to do and also have the free time to actually do what I want to do, because I'm also an artist. I want to make sure I can do that, but also anything that interests me in the next few years.
Definitely focusing on the relationship I have with my family, friends, and people that I just didn't get a chance to do that with.
And mine would be practicing more gratitude, for sure.
I've always thought I tried to be other-centered. I think now I'm going to have to be even more other-centered. Give other people patience, not be so judgmental.
Communities around the globe are ringing in 2025 with fireworks, cultural performances, and vibrant traditions. From Sydney Harbor to Victoria Harbor, the celebrations continue into the night. NTD's Christina Corona tells us where the celebrations are taking place.
Many across the globe are ringing in 2025 with extravagant displays and vibrant traditions. The new year begins in the South Pacific, followed by New Zealand's Chatham Islands and other Pacific nations that are 18 hours ahead of the Times Square ball drop in New York. Malaysians welcome the new year with fireworks lighting up the night sky as residents counted down from rooftops and streets. In Taiwan, Taipei's iconic 101 Tower was the centerpiece of a stunning fireworks display, following a lively countdown led by hosts on a public stage. Beijing marked the occasion with a cultural and art performance where crowds gathered with glow sticks to celebrate. Over in Hong Kong, fireworks illuminated Victoria Harbor, captivating onlookers. Sydney, Australia kicked off 2025 with its world-famous fireworks over the harbor, drawing more than 1 million spectators. Bangkok boosted its appeal with a massive fireworks display, thrilling performances, and an appearance by Thai icon Lisa, a member of the K-pop group Blackpink. The celebration had a stunning eco-friendly fireworks show stretching along the Chao Phraya River.
It's obviously a pretty stand-up point being on the riverfront and all the lights here, big concert down bottom. It's real cool to see.
Compared to all the Asian countries, it is the best amongst India and Malaysia and Singapore, I think. So yeah, it is cool to be part of a huge countdown show.
However, South Korea's New Year celebrations were subdued, reflecting the nation's mourning following the tragic December 29th Jeju air crash. 20 minutes before midnight, a moment of silence was observed to honor the victims. The traditional bell-ringing ceremony was held without performances. As the clock ticks towards midnight in New York City, countries worldwide have already embraced 2025 with joy and tradition. Christina Corona, NTD News.
Cats on catwalks, canine lifeguards, and yoga piglets were in some unusual places this year. Humans joined the fun with traditions and Instagram-worthy photos. NTD's Andrew Thomas has some of the highlights from stories that brought us joy and amazement in 2024.
Coinciding with London's Fashion Week, felines reclaimed the catwalk at the Loving Cats Worldwide Cat Stravaganza show. Thousands descended on London's Olympia in February to see some of the UK's most pampered cats. Larry the cat also waited patiently outside 10 Downing Street to find out who the next Prime Minister would be. The feline will remain chief mouser to the Cabinet Office. In Rome, international cat breeds competed at the annual Super Cat Show. Hundreds of felines and their breeders took over the Fiera di Roma for the 26th annual event. In Japan, Tokyo celebrated Hello Kitty's 50th anniversary with a new exhibition dedicated to the iconic cat. In the US, piglets hit a yoga class. A goat and even some rabbits joined the fun. Back in Italy, dogs showed lifeguards their natural talent in the water. The canines were popular with beachgoers and trained to save lives. In the Swiss Alps, residents and visitors celebrated the country's cows as part of an 8th-century-old tradition. Farmers brought their herds down from the mountains and led them in a procession. Back in London, sheep got a lot of attention. Actor Damian Lewis drove a flock of them across Southwark Bridge, honoring a medieval tradition. Animals weren't the only ones to delight and amuse this year. Humans around the world continued to amaze. In Bulgaria, bold locals danced barefoot over glowing embers. The ritual is held every year in the far southeast of the country. In Kosovo, fearless competitors jumped into the White Drin River from a 65-foot-high single-arch stone bridge. Spectators gathered to cheer them on. Diving from the structure began after World War II and has been held ever since. In Brazil, tourists lined up to cling for life from a rock hundreds of feet above the ground. Well, not really. Visitors posed next to Telegraph Rock for seemingly daring Instagram shots. The attraction made it seem like they're dangling from a cliff. So what will entertain us next year? We'll have to wait and see what 2025 has in store. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
And that's all for today's news. For round-the-clock coverage, visit us at ntd.com or download our NTD app. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Tiffany Meyer, and from all of us here at NTD News, Happy New Year and good night.